In the year 1552, one of the largest ships ever built at the time was rounding the southern edge of Africa with more than 600 people packed aboard. It never completed the journey. A series of violent storms battered the vessel until it was no longer seaworthy, forcing its abandonment along the coast of what is now South Africa. More than 500 survivors made it ashore, but survival did not mean safety. What followed was a brutal overland march, spanning hundreds of miles toward the nearest Portuguese settlement. Along the way, they would face starvation, dehydration, violence, and fear beyond anything they had already endured at sea. And in the end, they would not find refuge. They would find something far worse. As always, viewer discretion is advised. The global spice trade is one of the oldest and most influential trade networks in human history, with origins reaching back to the Neolithic era, nearly 10,000 years ago. For centuries, spices grown in Asia moved slowly westward by land, reaching the Middle East and North Africa, but rarely travelling farther. That changed dramatically by the 15th century. Improvements in navigation and shipping opened new routes, allowing spices to spread farther and faster than ever before. When they finally reached Europe, demand exploded. Cinnamon, pepper, ginger, nutmeg. These flavours transformed European cuisine, and once people tasted them, they wanted more. Much more. For a time, spices travelled overland through the Persian Gulf and across Egypt to the Mediterranean. But in the late 1400s, Portuguese explorers discovered something revolutionary, a sea route to the Indies by sailing around Africa. This discovery reshaped global trade and ignited violence. Portugal had little that Indian and Arab traders wanted. What they did have were powerful ships and superior weapons. And so, they entered the spice trade not through negotiation, but through force. Portuguese warships attacked merchant vessels and besieged coastal cities that resisted them. By the early 1500s, fleets of armed ships were routinely rounding the Cape of Good Hope, asserting Portuguese dominance over the Indian Ocean. King Manuel I established a royal monopoly over the spice trade, ushering in decades of expansion and growing greed. Ships were built larger and heavier to carry ever greater cargoes, often at the expense of safety. Many never returned. In 1550, a massive galleon began construction in Lisbon. Midway through the build, it was repurposed from a warship into a cargo vessel designed to haul spices. The ship was named São João, or St. John. For 2 years, it performed well. Then came February of 1552. Final preparations were made for another return voyage from India to Portugal under the command of Captain Manuel de Sousa Sepúlveda, a respected naval officer and seasoned trader. He was well connected, well regarded, and trusted with one of Portugal's most valuable ships. On February 3rd, the São João departed Cochin, modern-day Kochi, carrying more than 13 tons of pepper, along with spices, medicinal goods, exotic cargo, and 600 people. Some were sailors, some were passengers, others were captives. Even before departure, crew members worried the ship was overloaded and unstable. Their concerns were dismissed. The voyage back placed the ship directly in one of the most dangerous maritime regions on Earth. Ships had to carefully time monsoon seasons in the Indian Ocean, while also braving the unpredictable storms of the Cape of Good Hope. By April 13th, the African coast came into view, but the São João was already behind schedule. Earlier storms had shredded its sails, leaving the crew struggling with damaged canvas barely capable of propulsion. Near the coast of Natal, favourable winds briefly returned. Then, without warning, conditions shifted. Powerful headwinds trapped the ship just miles from the Cape. Manuel faced a decision: press forward, turn back, or ride the currents. He chose the currents. It didn't matter. A far more violent storm formed. and the ship had no chance of escaping it. Shifting winds slammed the vessel from both sides, and waves poured over the decks. The San Juan's design worked against it, top-heavy, narrow, and loaded with cannons and cargo. While other European nations focused on stability, Portuguese ships prioritized capacity. In heavy seas, that difference proved fatal. Water flooded the hull. Cargo was thrown overboard. It made no difference. For 27 days, the ship was battered by storm after storm. When the seas finally eased, the damage was catastrophic. The mast, sails, and rudder were beyond repair. Even worse, the rudder fittings themselves were gone. The truth was kept secret to avoid panic, but everyone could see the ship was dying. By June 8th, the African coast was visible again. The San Juan could no longer be controlled. Manuel ordered lifeboats launched to scout for a place to beach the ship. After hours of searching jagged coastline, they found a narrow clearing north of modern-day Port Edward. The ship was anchored. Lines were tied to shore. Evacuation began. Traditionally, a captain is last to leave a sinking ship. Instead, the first to go ashore were Manuel, his wife Leonor, their children, and armed guards. Over 3 days, small groups were ferried to land. Then the lines snapped. The ship was pulled into the rocks and split apart. People were thrown into the sea. Some clung to wreckage, others drowned. Within an hour, the San Juan shattered completely. More than 100 people died. Over 400 survived. They were stranded. Manuel believed they could build a new vessel from the wreckage. Within hours, it became clear this was impossible. The ocean had reduced the ship to fragments. Shelters were built from barrels and chests. Food was scarce, water scarcer. After nearly 2 weeks, Manuel made a decision. They would walk. Their destination was Sofala, a Portuguese settlement nearly 800 miles away. Before leaving, Manuel addressed the group, not with encouragement, but with a plea. Do not abandon me if I fall behind. On July 7th, the march began. At first, progress was steady, but hunger and thirst soon ravaged the group. The weak were left behind. Among the abandoned were a captive woman and her child, rumoured to be Manuel's own son. Violence followed. Some local tribes attacked, others helped. Death became routine. After 4 months, the survivors reached the Zambezi River, where they encountered a friendly king who welcomed them and provided shelter. But Manuel refused to stay. Soon after leaving, they met another tribe, one that appeared friendly. Their king offered guidance and protection on one condition: they must surrender their weapons. Leonor begged her husband not to agree. He did anyway. The moment the weapons were collected, the attack began. Those who resisted were killed. Others were enslaved. Leonor was assaulted, stripped, and humiliated. To avoid being seen, she buried herself in the sand up to her neck and refused to move. She died there. Manuel broke. He wandered into the wilderness alone, never seen again. By 1553, a Portuguese search party arrived. Of the original 500, only 25 people were still alive. They were purchased for silver. The rest were gone. If you liked what you've seen here, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It goes a long way in helping YouTube push our videos to more people. Thanks for watching and have a great day.